What's going on, everyone? Welcome back along to the channel. It is that time of week again to get back into the mood for a weekend of action in Super Rugby. We are looking forward to round number 5, where we have just about everyone in action. It is just the high-flying Hurricanes who are out of this weekend's matches, but we still have a lot of cracking games to have a look at, and we've got a special guest back onto the channel. We've been almost needing ourselves a bit of a flak jacket over the last couple of weeks, or especially the last week, the way it's going, but Brett's back on the channel. Welcome back, Brett. How's your life been going since we met last time?
Yeah, good, man. I'm hoping my picks in this video will be better than what my form's been in SuperBru lately, so looking to redeem myself a bit, I suppose.
Yep, she's been, I mean, who predicted what happened? I think I read on SuperBru Twitter they said that no one got the Grand Slam point, which is getting every single match right last weekend. So, you know, give it up. Let's go. Let's take a look here at the at the SuperBru leaderboard. We'll start off with that this week since we got you here, Brett, because we've got a lot to talk about here with this leaderboard. So we're going to start off looking at the predictor leaderboard, okay? So I've got it over here, so I'm going to be looking a bit odd to anyone who's watching this video, but it's interesting. A lot of big movements on the leaderboard this week. We've got Christian. Absolutely unbelievable what this guy is doing. Still leading after that ridiculous round last week, but they're catching up on him. The Stig is flying high, up 23 places with the yellow cap as well. So he is looking pretty good. And of course, a well-named man here, Quagga Smith, bulldozing his way into third position. It's actually top 3. Waggers also deserves good mention, up 27 spots to 4th. But people have mentioned, we'll talk about driving more here, he's up 12 as well. The dirty bugger, he's stormed up the leaderboard quite nicely with some good picks. Even though he tried to copy them, he still seems to do better. But let's talk about where we are. We have to scroll down quite a little bit to talk about where we are here, Brett. I'm still beating you. I'm down 11. You're down a couple as well. But we're 38th and 40th. What's gone wrong? What is going wrong with our picks?
I actually have no clue. I thought I've been predicting pretty well. I think you gave me quite a lot of flack 2 weeks ago for changing from the Blues to the Chiefs, and then the Blues won by the margin I originally had, which was an absolute kick in the guts. But I copped a fair bit for that, and since then it's sort of gone downhill. I think the rugby gods are punishing me for picking the Blues.
That was funny. I almost forgot about that. I had to give you a stick about that. That was really funny. The Blues, though, we'll talk about them later, but what a ridiculous team they've been over the last couple of weeks. Choking in that game that everyone thought they'd win. They go over to Africa, and they bloody win. Well, it's a pack of scumbags they are as well. So less we talk about our picks last week, the better. But we go down the rest of the list. We're not doing the worst, that's for sure. Some fella called Nana is down there with the wooden spoon. So I guess we could be worse. We could be getting the wooden spoon. So I'm not going to be too picky. We've also, of course, got the fantasy team going as well. Sneaky Toilet Actions is really storming up this leaderboard. He's been in the top 3 for a while, but the Toilet Man doing it well. Yellow cap, he's down first. And Big Coventry's team, the Giant Philanthropists, yep, another great name. He's sitting in second, and the Outstanding Dinosaurs are in third. But we've got to look out for that carryover champion, MFCFO's Blues, who do sit in 9th. He's had a bad week as well. He's down 4 spots. But let's have a look at where our teams are here, Brett. We've come down a long way. I'm 28th here. Your team is 33rd. We've dropped a couple of places as well. What's we got on for fantasy team? Any good picks that people should pick up that you've noticed with your side? Probably not with the where we're sitting, but anyone you've noticed?
Yeah, just take what I say with a grain of salt, because obviously we're not a very well-coached side right now. Just remember, don't bench Mapimpi, because I did last week and it didn't turn out well because he's had a good round, and Robert Dupree has been doing quite well for my team as well, even though he's been on the bench, so he actually hasn't been doing that well. But on the bench, he's racking up points that don't actually count towards my total. And yeah, I'm not very good at fantasy league, so I don't really pretend that I am, basically.
Hey, you're still not last. You're still not last. We scroll down. There's a lot of people that are way below us. And some people don't even have a squad full of players yet. So, I mean, those guys are mugs, aren't they? They're not even in the whole leaderboard. But that's right. That's right. Let's get on with the weekend's action, though. A little bit of commiserations on our picks here. But let's go forward to the games. But first things first, yellow cards. Let's get that counter going up here. We're up to 20 yellow cards after 4 rounds. Of course, the red cards as well thrown in there. But we haven't had Joel for a while. Brett, what's your thoughts on the way the card situation has been going in this season?
Look, it's pretty much on par to be following the trend over the last few years. Every year it seems to the refs sort of want to one up themselves. They maybe have a quota every year that they have to reach with yellow cards. I don't know. Look, we're probably some of the yellow cards, well, a lot of the yellow cards are deserved, but I think you spoke with the Cannon quite a bit last week about the situation with penalty tries and yellow/red cards. It should be one or the other, and a lot of the times we've had happen in the Bulls game as well. And that was a Crusaders Blues game or Crusaders Chiefs game? Crusaders Chiefs.
Yes.
Yeah, where it's been talked about quite a lot. Penalty try and yellow card, and with penalty tries being 7 points this year as well, it's double whammy. And yeah, so it seems every time there's a tiny bit of contact with the neck or tiny bit of foul play, it's straight to the pocket right away. And I guess World Rugby are trying to iron out a lot of the sort of the rough stuff in rugby. It's the players obviously haven't been informed very well because they're playing like normal and getting yellow cards and then looking all confused when they walk off the field. So it hasn't been that great watching so many yellow cards be dished out.
It's interesting, though, because, it's like last weekend in the Highlanders game, the referee did let a lot of those 50-50 things go. And it did let the match flow a lot better as well. And I thought, referees probably need a little bit more to be like he was in that game. But, yeah, you're not going to see it all around. Referees are pretty strict on that. And it's just going to mount up those yellow cards. We need more performances from teams like the Reds and the Jaguares to get more yellows so we can smash that tally from last season. But let's get on to the real reason we're here. Round 5. It kicks off with a very interesting match, I think, for your opinion on as well. It is the Chiefs versus the Bulls at Waikato Stadium. Let's talk about the Chiefs a little bit here first. They're coming off the bye. And last time we seen them was that game against the Blues. Where we've probably seen what their team was about mentally. The passion that side has. Expected to losing all those players. Retalix, the Stevensons, all just before kickoff. Yet still they managed to perform so well. A huge injury stack on that side as well, which does not help them. But they still seem to find players that step up at that level. And their team has just been named as well. I don't know if you've seen it, but it was named about an hour or two ago. They are keeping 10 Falcons, as I like to call them. Yes, that's number 10. But 10 Falcon is starting at 10. And they're keeping Mackenzie at 15. How does this team that's so ravaged with injuries, changes, everything going on through the offseason, how do they still keep performing as good as the Chiefs team have in recent seasons?
Yeah, look, first I think it's quite interesting that they moved Mackenzie back to 15. Obviously injuries sort of forced him to do that, but after all this talk about him at 10, and he had a decent performance against the Blues at 10, but yeah, I think 15 is definitely his best position, and that's where he should stay. There's been a lot of cases in World Rugby where players have been swapped around in the back line and they just haven't performed well in their new position. So if a player performs well somewhere and he's happy in that position, I don't know whether he's happy or not. I'm pretty sure he is, but yeah, just keep him at the position where he's been excelling. And back to your point about the injuries, they just got to keep playing. There's nothing really they can do about it. It seems like a lot of their players are made of just glass and can just fall like flies. They just got to keep playing. They got to trust in their team systems, and it sounds quite cliche, but you can't really. You're not going to achieve anything moping about the amount of injuries you had. You just got to keep moving forward and hopefully, get a few results along the way.
Yeah, the Chiefs are a side that seem to be able to make things kind of work. I think a lot of that, is down to their team culture, which is very, very strong. Very family sort of culture, I guess you'd call it up that way, and it just seems to aid them extremely well. Speaking about Mackenzie, he did actually re-sign a contract too, so he is actually in New Zealand rugby for a few more seasons, which is good. But where he's going to play is going to be the real interesting thing in the future for the side. Just a side note on this game, and it kind of made me think about how we've got TN Falcon. From your perspective, we're not in New Zealand. What's your view on all these young fly halves that New Zealand's got coming through, like the likes of Falcon, who we've just been introduced? We've got the young guy Hunt at the Crusaders. We've got the young guy Smith Fletcher Smith at the Highlanders as well. Not to mention the ones at the Hurricanes and the Blues, so Peter Feta. Some people may disagree, but all Teddy Blacks and players. But more those younger guys that we see from the Crusaders, the Highlanders, and this young guy, the Chiefs. What's your perspective on that? Is it just New Zealand rugby churning out quality players still?
Yeah, I think so. New Zealand rugby has always managed to field quality players, and you have a guy like Dan Carter retiring from Test rugby, and then you got a guy like Beauden Barrett that's ready to come straight up and take the reins like nothing has even gone wrong. And I think it's a good time for New Zealand rugby to be developing all these young fly halves, because you sort of got your top 2-3 fly halves in the country. Liam Mustapawanga being one of those, and with him leaving after the season, you sort of want the bridge to shrink between your Beauden Barretts and guys, the younger guys in New Zealand rugby. So yeah, it's good for the Super Rugby sides to develop these young guys, give them experience, and then hopefully we'll see some rise up to the national side.
And it's amazing when Australia looks on from over the ditch, and they have so many struggles to try and get someone to back up Brandon Foley, and he just seems to be this talent just keeps resurfacing year after year after year. I think South Africa's definitely on the improve though, with some young talent this season, which is really, really good to see. Now, up against the Chiefs will be the Bulls. Now, try not to make too many people hate you with your comments and stuff about the Bulls, but we have some passionate Bulls fans, so I want to hear what you passionate Bulls fans have to say out there as well. Right, let's see what you say. The Bulls played the Reds. I think they had a really good first half against the Reds as well, but like we often see for them on tour, they just can't seem to play their full 80-minute performance as well. And I do think that round one game against the Hurricanes with their forwards were so amazing. What's happened to that? Are the Bulls, I know people are going to hate me for saying this, but are they just turning into the team that many people expected them to be at the start of the season before, you take out that shock win against the Hurricanes? It's just the Bulls that many people were expecting to see.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised by the Bulls. Obviously, I sat here in your SA conference preview, and I absolutely put the Bulls on blast, and I got quite a lot of flack for that as well. People telling me that the Bulls are going to be better than I thought they would be. And after round two, when they beat the Hurricanes, I sort of took a step back and said, maybe most of us were wrong. Maybe John Mitchell was actually on something here. The Bulls were playing through their forwards. Their forwards were absolutely dominating the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes definitely didn't have a full-strength team that day, which should be taken into account as well. But still, they've got some great depth. But obviously, if you have EHIOS as your 10, it's never really going to go well for you. But that game was really impressive. And then they played the Lions the week after, and they probably got dogged a bit. They're probably going to lose the game anyway, but they probably got a bit unlucky with some of those ref calls. The ref definitely ruined the contest, and they could have put a lot more pressure on the Lions than they did in the last 20 minutes. And then last week, they just came unstuck. They met a Reds pack who is actually a very impressive pack, probably so far from what I've seen, they're the best pack in Australia. And they just got undone. And maybe it's when they come against forward packs who are better than theirs, maybe it limits their strengths a bit, and they sort of just fall flat in the water. And they've got some good backs as well, which is a surprising thing. Who can score well, especially off counter attack guys like Warwick Gallant, Andre Pollard. Those sort of guys who are very, very good players. And they maybe it's just because the Bulls are on tour. They've never really toured well as a side in their history, even when they were, dominating the competition. So, they've got a big game to play on Saturday, or was it Friday?
Friday.
If they win here, it'll be huge for them. And if they lose, it could be, season defining.
Yeah, I was impressed by what they pulled out against the Reds in that first half. I actually had them down to win. It probably was a bit, following on from their first match where they were so impressive, but I really enjoyed that style they played. They were just, it was so explosive through the middle of the park that it was such a joy to watch, to see teams playing that sort of style of play. So I really wanted to see more from that, and I didn't think the Reds would be able to handle it. And Yeah, we didn't see that, but I still think they played pretty well. Their outside backs were quite good in the first half, but they seemed to lose a lot of direction in the second spell, which is a bit of a shame. Didn't have much direction in the attack, which kind of they fell off. Reds got a bit of momentum. They got big confidence in them, and it was all over from there. But I'd still think this Bulls team, get them back home, try and salvage anything they can from these next couple of weeks on tour. But they're going to still, we just need to see them recreate that. And if they can do that against the Chiefs, they could, they'll challenge anyone if they can play that style of rugby that we've seen against the Hurricanes. So, got the Chiefs versus the Bulls. It is at home, Waikato Stadium. What's your margin? Who's your winner? And what's your big factor of why they're going to win this game?
I think I've got quite a big margin, and I might actually be shrinking that later in the week. I'll see. Depending on what, I don't think the Bulls have named their team yet. I won't flip it. I might just shorten the margin a bit. But I've got the Chiefs winning by 15. From what I saw, if it's the same Bulls that turned out to Suncorp last week, I don't think they can go to Waikato and win and beat the Chiefs no matter what Chiefs team they play. Then for the Bulls to actually do well, they need to dominate the Chiefs forwards. They need to play up front like they did against the Hurricanes. They need to rely on their big athletic forwards. They've got some of the better forwards in the competition, especially with running the ball and just absolutely just running over the opposition. They need to stick to their strengths. If they need to, they need to kick it, but kick it intelligently. They can't just give it to they can't give it to Damian McKenzie. He'll be sitting back at the fullback position now. They need to kick intelligently. If they see the run's not on, don't try run it. Gain some field position. And just play to their strengths. But I think the Chiefs will. I'm just judging what I saw from the Chiefs against the Blues. The Chiefs are, despite the injuries, the Chiefs are still a good team this year. And their back play is still amazing. Damon McKenzie back in his better position now will have more space and time to think about his attacks and just keep prodding at that Bulls line. And I think eventually the Bulls are going to stick with it for 50, 60 minutes. But I think eventually that Bulls line's going to break, and then the Chiefs are sort of going to run rampant. I got the Chiefs by 15.
It's a shame because I would like to see that Bulls style that we've seen against the Hurricanes. We're going to talk about this all season, that one game against the Hurricanes. But I would love to see that against a team like the Chiefs, who have some really, really good talent in their second row and in their pack as well. Just to see how much it would rattle them as well, just to see what it would do and how they would deal with it. I'm going pretty similar to you. I'm going Chiefs by 18. So I'm going even bigger. I like the Bulls. I've been impressed, and I still think I was pretty wrong about them pre-season. I'd like to see them come back and be a lot better, like we know they can be. But I think we're going to see that back at home. I don't think we're going to see it from them on tour. So I'm going a decent big win here for the Chiefs to open up the weekend. Right, that's a decent match to start us off. But we have a rip snorter, an absolute cracker for our second game of the weekend. The Highlanders, who, man, they've been impressive. Up against the Crusaders, who, they're going to be hurting. This one's at Forsyth Bar. The home team, the Highlanders, of course, excitement machines. They just play, and they play dangerous. They play cutthroat rugby, don't they? I think I'd go and call them, so far, the best-looking New Zealand team. I think they look dangerous. They make a few mistakes, which a team like I'd expect the Crusaders to capitalise on a lot. But what have you made from them from their opening 2 games? And keep in mind, they are only one of 2 undefeated teams in Super Rugby in 2018 after 4 rounds.
Yeah, it's sort of helped that they've had 2 buys, but in the two games they have played, they've been fantastic. That game against the Blues was probably, if not the game of the season so far, it's probably the second best game of the season so far. It was an absolutely outstanding game, and for their first hit out of the season, to play like that, they just played phenomenally. They've always been a strong attacking team, and with Ben Smith back from his sabbatical as well, a well-rested Ben Smith who seems to have lost none of his fitness and none of his attacking capability, to perform to run like he has after such a long break is amazing. They pieced apart the Stormers last week. It was not really much of a challenge for them. The Stormers don't tour well, but they just put the points on them. and their backs really shine in that game. The Highlanders are just clinical. They don't make too many stupid mistakes. And Aaron Smith's kicking as well. Out of all the box kickers in the world, who I absolutely hate, he's probably my favourite one because his box kicks actually have some purpose behind them. And they'd normally, a lot of the time, they do gain back possession from them, but I absolutely hate box kicks. I think the opposition should get a penalty kick right in front of the post whenever a box kick is done. But that's a bit of a sidebar. The Highlanders have been extremely good, and like you said, the Crusaders will be hurting from last week after that big upset.
Yeah, the Highlanders just need to clean up those little, I don't know, miscommunications or those little 50-50 passes that can sometimes cost them, as we've seen last weekend as well. But, I mean, you take the risk, don't you? And sometimes it comes off, and when you just got so many players in that back line that are just X-factor, and they can just make, a nothing pass, it just falls down, he's stuck in a corner, bang, he scored a try. They got players that can do that, and that is a big, big difference between some teams and other teams, successful ones and ones that just sit mid-table. But they're up against the Crusaders. Who thought in round 5 of the tournament we'd be sitting here talking about the Crusaders and the Lions having lost the match already? It's just a bit surprising, but they got, I think, I'll call it revenge that the Hurricanes got on them from that clinic that they got last season from the Crusaders. What a turnaround a year makes, isn't it? They are a team that hate to lose. Losing is not part of their vocabulary. What are you expecting this weekend? A big backlash against the Highlanders? We're going to see this Crusaders team just like explode with fury of losing their first game of the season? Or are they not as good as we possibly all thought they were?
No, I think they are a good team. I think they are a very good team. They actually, even after last week, I think the Crusaders are still my favourites to win the competition. They're going to be refocused. That loss would have really hurt them. And they've got a very good coach, and he'll just use that as an opportunity to refocus them, and they'll come out very focused. But it's not like they're going to come out and flog the Highlanders, because you just don't do that, especially if it's at Forsyth Bar Stadium. Extremely tough place to play. And if the game's anything like it was last year, which I'm pretty sure Highlanders fans haven't forgot about yet, that absolutely outstanding drop kick, I think it was Mitch Hunt, 40-something metres out, and just drops it on the boot and wins the game when the scores are tied. So if it's anything, if last year was indication, this game's going to be an absolute cracker.
Yeah, to bring that up, didn't you? Just had to bring it up.
That was the play of the season last year. That was amazing.
And to think, he was young nobody, wasn't he, really? It just to have that composure now that it was, I agree. It was one of the great games of the season as well. One of the moments, I'd say, of last season. But what I found out last weekend with the Crusaders is when they lost a couple of key players, Ryan Crotty, Sam Whitelock, were probably the two big ones. I think that was a big turnaround in that matchup as well. Yes, they were behind the 19-0 when they lost those guys, but it took a big part of their game plan out. It took a big part of their structure out as well. Pretty much the key man in the forward pack and the key man in the back line that holds it all together. Yes, they could have won that game, but you got to give it to the Hurricanes. They were amazing, and it just puts a little question mark when you go to the Crusaders in future, doesn't it? It's like, are they this formidable, unbeatable side? No, they're definitely not. And well, for that reason is why I've got my pick. But I'm going to give you yours first. Is who you think's going to win this one?
Well, before I say my pick, do you know if Richie Mo'unga will be back this week, or is he still injured?
I have not seen the teams. They're not released yet.
Yeah, it really depends, I think, on the margin, especially Mo'unga in the before last week. Obviously, Mo'unga wasn't there. In the 2 games before that, he was a really integral part of their team, and he had 2 outstanding games. But right now, I've got the Crusaders by 5. I think they're going to be, like I said, they're going to be really focused. They're going to go on really wanting redemption, because they know if they lose to 2 New Zealand teams in a row, that puts them in quite bad standing, because the New Zealand Conference, especially if you see the Blues winning in Joburg, the New Zealand Conference is going to be extremely, extremely competitive. Throughout all 5 teams this year. All teams are playing outstanding rugby, and they're really going to want to win here. So I think they're going to come out, like you said, very, very angry, very focused, and I think that's going to be too much for the Highlanders in the end, but it's going to be a bitter fight all the way to the end.
Yeah, he's going to be a big factor if Mo'unga does play for this match as well. So we'll see when they do name the teams. But I'm still going with the Highlanders. I'm wearing blue. I don't know. That's no indication. But I'm going Highlanders by 2. I mean, you got to put yourself out there a little bit, don't you? If these picks to be a point of difference, I think either side could win this. It's going to come down to big moments, cards, injuries. Just a game-breaking moment in this game that's going to decide it. I think being under the roof is going to be entertaining. It's going to be a lot of line breaks, a lot of exciting moments, a lot of tries, and it should be really. There's a bit of competition, but it should be really the game of the round. It could be a cracker, but I'm going to go up the Highlanders to sneak it by a whisker. And a lot's going to come down to who actually starts that game, especially for the Crusaders as well, with Crotty having those head issues, things like that. You know, if those guys don't start, that is a massive difference to this game as well. With the Highlanders centres performing so well, Thompson especially, they could have a field day in there. They are exciting talent. So there's a point of difference for you. Go the Highlanders. So going probably with the heart over the head on that one, which might come back to haunt me later on in the weekend. But let's move on. Next game of the weekend, we're going over to GI Stadium. The Brumbies. And this against your team, the Sharks. Let's talk about the Brumbies first. How pathetic have the Brumbies been this season? Just terrible. Where's it all gone wrong for the side?
Oh, they've been shocking. To almost lose to the Sunwolves, who themselves have been absolutely shocking and disgusting to watch this year. I'll talk about that when we preview the Sunwolves game. But the Brumbies have just been shocking. So they narrowly beat the Sunwolves week 1. Somehow they got through that one. Then they went to play the Reds, got absolutely dominated by the Reds forward pack. Taniela Tupou Tongan-Thor had the best game of his life against the Brumbies when the Reds played them. Got demolished. The Reds didn't score a try, but that didn't stop them from winning the game. And then last week they got absolutely just thumped by the Rebels, who have been the best side in Australia so far. Didn't have an answer for them. So bit of a reality check for the Brumbies, who for the last couple of years have been sort of the safe pick in Australia to take up the Australian Conference. So bit of a shake-up this year with the Brumbies. They've been absolutely shocking. I don't really see much of a game plan at times. I see them trying to stick to their strengths of forward play, mauling the ball over. But their backs just make stupid mistakes. I noticed last week Christian Lealefano, who's been quite good for the Brumbies this year, he played the ball quite flat to the line. And every time he touched the ball, he would get rid of it quickly, and then he'll get absolutely smashed by the Rebels. So he was out of the game the whole time because he copped so much just after the ball stuff. And it was obviously legal because it was directly after he got rid of the ball. But, yeah, he was just getting smashed the whole game, and he was never really able to get into it. So, I really don't know where it's gone wrong with the Brumbies. Obviously, they've changed coach. So that's always a factor. But, yeah, they've just been awful this year.
And you talk about Lealefano, I think his kicking needs to improve. They need someone who's going to nail 90% of their kicks, because that's going to be a team that plays that forward style of play. Is getting a lot of penalties, chances, threes. They need to be taking all those chances as well. It's amazing to talk about a team with the likes of Kurandrani, Spate, especially those two being so ineffective in their backline as well, which is surprising to say, but they've just been woeful. It's been struggle to see where they're going to get any points, but they are playing the Sharks, and, well, I mean, the Sharks, it's a South African team, and it's a South African team on tour. A win, a draw, a loss. I mean, they've got the full 3-pack house already, and it's only round 5 of the tournament. The road block though, the road tour, is this going to be a bit of a stumbler for the Sharks, trying to recover their average start to the season?
I mean, it's sort of hard to stumble when you're already flat on your face, isn't it? But, look, I'm being critical because I'm a Sharks fan, but I have not been impressed in the littlest bit with the Sharks this year. Watching their games has just been terrible. It's been like pulling teeth for me because if you look at their roster and the talent they have and the players they signed in the off-season, their skill level is just absolutely shocking. Just drop balls, charge down kicks when it shouldn't be. Cohen Bosch thinking it's necessary for him to kick drop goals from 60 metres, 50 metres. I don't know what's going on. Our skill level has just been terrible, and yeah, we beat the Sunwolves quite soundly, but for a lot of that game we were quite bad, and it was pretty much just the Sunwolves that were playing themselves out of that game. Week before that, drawing with the Waratahs, and the Waratahs and the Sharks were equally as terrible in that game. I don't think I've ever seen such a bad game in my life. Just awful game in terms of skill level and just overall play from both teams. And then the first week was actually probably their better performance, and they lost against the Lions. So they can improve, especially with the players they have. I thought Robert Dupree Senior was a quite good coach. Hopefully he starts to prove me right on that a bit. But this year I've sort of been thinking he's been the one letting us down a bit with maybe the preparation wasn't good enough, maybe the players haven't gelled well enough, and that was one of the comments that we got quite a lot after we previewed the SA conference video, whether the Sharks would be able to gel or not. And I don't think it'll be a problem. Look at their preseason. But yeah, it shows that preseason absolutely means nothing, because they have been shocking this year. Same with the Brumbies. The Brumbies and Sharks have been equally shocking this year.
And what a time for them to meet. I mean, it's going to come down to who really actually does pick up their game a little bit. It could be a terrible match to watch. On paper, you'd have to say the Sharks win every day of the week, but going to GRO Stadium, can they?
Yeah. I don't know. I think if the Sharks use their players well, I think a guy who's underrated before the season, who's been the standout best Shark, is Andre Esterhazen. Big guy, huge for an inside centre. Just bust the defensive line, and he's set up some amazing tries, and his combination with Lakanya Arm is a big key to the Sharks. And obviously out wide, having a guy like Mapimpi, who was rested the second game but came back last week and was outstanding. They just got to play with their strengths. Having Kerwin Bosch back in the starting lineup last week was a big help for them. I don't really rate Luwazi Volvo as a good fullback. I think he's a quality winger, but not a fullback. And they just got to work together as a team and learn how to play together. And I think they can. They did upset the Brumbies last year in Canberra because of a last-minute try from Lakanya Arm. So I think they're capable of it. I think the Sharks will win, but I think it's one of the games of the weekend that can definitely go either way.
Who's your pick? What's your margin?
I'm going Sharks by 5.
Sharks by, I've got more confidence in the Sharks than you. I'm going Sharks by 9. Yeah, there's a lot you could talk. You could talk about the Sharks all day, really, couldn't you? Such a talented squad, but really not getting that full squad performance. I do agree with you. Their centre pairing is very good. I think Arm is really the key man of that back line, linking up to their outside backs, who are good, but if they don't get the ball through there and out to them, what's the point in having those good guys out there? So he's key, and I think he has developed amazingly after all the big plaudits he got a couple of years ago about being this up-and-comer guy, and he's actually starting to show it now, being a bit of a leader in that back line, which is good for them. But equally for the Brumbies, they need a good performance from a couple of guys who could be decisive in their team as well, and they could easily take this game away from the Sharks as well. So it's going to be a close game, probably like we'll see in the Highlanders and the Crusaders, but probably at a very, very different level, which is going to be a bit of difference between them. So we're both going with the Sharks. You're going 5. I've got them by 9. Let's go on to the next match. Oh, dear. Stormers up against the Blues. The Blues on the road. Newlands for this one. The Stormers are back at home, though, which is going to be big for them, because I think they were a pretty good side on tour for a touring South African team like the Stormers were. I'm expecting big things from them when they do get back home as well. But it's important that they get this victory. Do you think this is going to be a massive turning point for the Stormers season to get back on that winning track and to try and recover that lost ground? And, that game against the Waratahs, how many times are we going to talk about it that they should have won? Going back home with, a few points in the bag, 4, 5, 6 points in the bag would have made a huge difference to their season. Is it too late for the Stormers, or do you see them be able to come back against the Blues? Oh, God, we'll talk about the Blues in a minute.
Look, I don't think it's too late for the Stormers, considering the Lions have been good this year, bar last week. But apart from the Lions, the South African Conference actually hasn't been that great. So it's definitely not too late for them, but they haven't actually had. It seems a lot like last year with them. They've had an absolutely shocking tour. They didn't pick up. Well, I don't think they picked up 1 point on their tour. But the thing is, with that shocking tour, they did show glimpses of brilliance. As that game with the Crusaders comes to mind, with probably between the 40th and the 60th minute, they were actually beating the Crusaders in terms of just territory, and they scored quite a few tries in them as well. And they're playing really well against the Crusaders, but after that 60th minute came, the Crusaders just took it back from them. They've showed a glimpse of brilliance, but they have been terrible. I think and it's going to be hard coming there. It's going to be hard travelling back to Cape Town now and having to play another New Zealand team. I think they've had enough of New Zealand teams. But, in their credit, I think Willems has been amazing for them this year. He's been definitely their bright point and has established himself as their starting 10. But the Blues played really well against the Lions, especially to beat them on the high felt like they did. The Blues really should have won another game, if not 2 other games this season, where they've been undone in the last few minutes. So they were hurting after those games, and they played a fantastic game against the Lions, and I think they'll probably do the same to the Stormers on the weekend.
You look at the Blues season, and it could have been a lot different. They just went down to the Highlanders. They really should have beaten the Chiefs. Now they've beaten the Lions. That could have made a massive difference to their season had they got those little, those close games. They'd gotten over the line. We could be talking about the Blues being the best team in the New Zealand Conference so far. But I think it was one of the most unlikely wins of the season. I think possibly the Sunwolves getting a victory was more likely than the Blues going over and beating the Lions at home. I couldn't really believe that actually happened. The big question is, and most people will be asked after the match and probably for weeks ahead, how did they do it? What changed going over to South Africa, which is the hardest place to tour? How did they do it? How did they beat possibly one of the top 2 teams in the competition on the road?
Look, they just kept playing through most of the game. A lot of people were saying the Lions fell apart at the end, just like in the last 20 minutes. But Swiss de Bruyne said after the game that he thinks they were beaten throughout the whole 80 minutes. The Blues were just always there, and they were putting pressure on the Lions. And I think the Lions sort of let their own arrogance in the last couple of weeks get the best of them. They didn't seem on the top of the game like they were the previous weeks. And the Blues just showed up, and the Blues played well. Bryn Gatland, he's been sort of a bit of a joke the last few seasons, sort of known as Warren Gatland's son. But, I've been quite impressed with him this season, especially in those opening 2 games that he played. So he's another young guy coming through there that you could look out for in that 10 position. So the Blues just played well. They showed up on the day, and they just beat the Lions. And especially that last play when they won the game, the Lions had just kept reeling back, and they just couldn't stop them. And Lions' defense wasn't good enough in that last play to stop them just in front of the line. So, the Blues were by far deserved winners of that game, and it's good to see them, win a game that they shouldn't have won, because they have been quite bad the last couple of years. So it's good to see them improving.
The Blues normally they're the other way around. They lose the games that they should have won. Well, our Chiefs, a week before. But it's a common theme throughout the season, isn't it? A bit we've seen a lot of these sides. If you stay in the game, you've always got that chance. I mean, that's how the Waratahs season is still afloat, because they just stay within a try-scoring play of the result, and they seem to be able to pull it through. A lot of teams do that, just staying in the game, just keep with the opposition, and if you're in it, you can win it, and that's all they need to do. The Blues, unlikely victory, but you got to hand it to them. They are rolling now, and I think teams can't afford to take them lightly either, because they've shown. I mean, that's probably the hardest place just about to go and win against the Lions over there, and they are definitely going to be a team that could upset the best of the sides as well. They're that banana skin team, aren't they, the Blues? So they could be really, really interesting to see how this season does pan out. I think playing at full strength as well, getting some key guys back, Sonny Bill Williams and players like that, definitely do make a difference to not just the way he plays, but I think it's just confidence in the players around him. that they have that sort of guy there that they can rely on to do something, I guess, a little bit special and a little bit different. Who have you got winning this one? Stormers, Blues, Newlands. What's your margin?
I've got Blues by 6. I think they're just a better team. Stormers, the Blues have been in South Africa for a week, obviously. Stormers coming back from a dreadful tour. They'll be tired, they'll be frustrated. They'll be wanting a win quite badly, and the Newlands faithful in Cape Town will really want a win quite badly. But I think the Blues are just a better side, and I think they'll take the win.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm going the other side of the ledger. I'm going Stormers by 5. I struggle to see the Blues backing up a performance with another performance. The Blues are the sort of team that you just get stung by too many times in a season. I just can't give myself the confidence to pick them.
Yeah, they've already stuffed me once this season, so I'm hoping hopefully they'll redeem my confidence in them for once.
He's putting it all on the line. I'm going Stormers. I like the way the Stormers play. I find them exciting, and I think they're really good, but I want to see them at home. May not be this week, but I do think they're going to be a tough team, and they've got so much ability, a bit like the Sharks we talked about. I think the Stormers could be a really good side. Not this year, in the coming years, a lot of young talent on that team, so they're going to be a good one to watch out on, much like the Blues are as well. Two teams that are definitely on the rise, I think. Right, let's go to our next game. We're still in Africa. We're going to Ellis Park. We've got the Lions. Probably their toughest task of the season. Just no chance. They're up against the Sunwolves. Let's talk about the Lions. We talked about it a little bit before. It's almost a customary loss of the season, as they always go through one. They normally lose to the Hug Warriors, but they thought they might win this one this season. What went wrong for the Lions? Where did the Blues really exploit them the best? Do you think there was anything that they would look at that game and go, this is number one priority that we have to nail against the Sunwolves?
I mean, from what it looked like, the Lions, maybe just their mindset let them down. I think they were getting a bit too big for their riches, possibly, making some silly mistakes that you normally don't see from this Lions team. So I think they'll just be looking, especially into this game where it's absolutely 0% chance the Sunwolves winning, you would say.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Can you imagine if the Sunwolves win? That would kill some SuperBrus. But yeah, the Lions just have to go into this with an absolutely attacking mindset and don't take anything for granted and just go and smash the Sunwolves and regain some of their confidence that was absolutely shattered by the Blues last week. So they've got to go out and they've got to smash the Sunwolves. There's no question about it.
And it's the sort of game where they've got to go out there and they've got to nail whatever it is they're going to work on, because it's a game where they can. It's a game where they can probably go, let's try this or let's try that. Let's see if this will make a difference to us. It's not a game where you've got to go back to your core and say, we've really got to nail this sort of thing. They can try a few things there. They can see if they can improve and adjust to what went wrong against the Blues. So I think that's really what they've got to try and do. And yeah, I agree 100%. They've got to smash the Sunwolves. I like the Sunwolves. I enjoy the Sunwolves. It's good to see them. But, I mean, yeah, this is probably the perfect time for this game for the Lions, I think, as well. On a bit of a setback. The backlash is definitely going to be coming to the Japanese franchise. Talk about them a little bit. It's probably not much to really say here, but a team that's...
I've got a lot to say.
They're struggling. We all know that. But injuries it's just killed them this season as well. But overall, I mean, I think they have improved a little bit. But what are you thinking about the Sunwolves? Is there any chance of them even getting anything out of this season already?
No, I think they come. I don't think they have. If they'll even manage a win, maybe they get one cheeky win, maybe a draw. But apart from that, they can pretty much kiss their season goodbye, I reckon. They have had a lot of injuries, but a lot of the time it's bad luck. But some of the time also it can be a reflection of poor conditioning or poor preparation. I think they had the shortest preseason out of any Super Rugby team. I think they only had about two months, I think. So they've hardly had any preseason. In my opinion, the Sunwolves, bottom line, they just shouldn't be in the competition. They've been absolutely dreadful. They've got some good players. I think Billy Brits, especially their captain, has been phenomenal for them. He's sort of the glue that holds the little team they are together. He's definitely been their best performer. It's good to see Robbie Robertson back in Super Rugby for them. but they just shouldn't be in Super Rugby. They make terrible, terrible mistakes. And it comes to mind last week. They had their own scrum about 5 meters from their line, and they won the scrum, but their scrum half mucked the pass up, and the ball bounced into the in goal, and the Sharks scored off it. So just mistakes like that you shouldn't really see in a professional rugby team, no matter who they are. And I thought Jamie Joseph, being the good coach that he is, would be able to fix things. Maybe he needs a few seasons. But yeah, they just shouldn't be in the competition. And I think they'll get smashed by the Lions this week.
What do you think the big problem is with the players who are getting injured? I think it's poorly conditioned, because people are going to argue that the Sunwolves or the Japanese players are like match ready because they do play in the domestic competition in the build up to Super Rugby. But what is it just not up to that sort of level? Is it fitness? What do you really put it down to? At a guess, obviously we don't know. But what do you think that the main culprit is? That they seem to drop like flies more than any other team in the competition.
Yeah, I don't think the Japanese competition is bad quality. There's some really big name players that play for it, for clubs like Panasonic. They have some really good players. Beric Barnes has been there for a few years. Matt Giddo's playing there now. JP Peterson's in Japan quite often. But I think in terms of physicality, I don't think any domestic competition beats Super Rugby in that. And, you know, especially watching the New Zealand derbies, they absolutely go out there and they smash each other for 80 minutes. And I don't really see much rugby like that. That's not the Southern Hemisphere, and they're probably just not prepared for that. And, you know, maybe their conditioning, their injury preparation, their fitness. You know, you can only do so much in a short, span that the short span of preseason that they had, and just gelling as a team as well in that time while you're also preparing your fitness and your plays and everything else, and the new faces that they brought in as well. It's just so much to do in such a short amount of time, and it's backfired for them majorly here.
And it's a shame too, because like you say, Joseph is a decent coach, but he's got so little to work with. He's playing a C or D rated side from what he would have. I think the Sunwolves could compete if they had their best players fit and ready. We've seen it in the first couple of weeks, and the Brumbies aren't the best, but I mean, if they could beat teams like that, get up and sit mid-table, you know, they'll be competitive and they'll be able to, you know, do the odd wins, get a few wins a season would be good, and it would be, you know, progress for them. But I just think with so many injuries, it's going to be a long time before they're going to be at their best again to really challenge any other sides. So what have you got margin for you? We've got the Lions Sunwolves. What's your pick?
This is, I think, probably my biggest margin that I've picked so far this year. I've gone Lions by 33. And the Lions need to smash the Sunwolves and regain confidence. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, it's hard to pick a big margin, isn't it? I've gone the Lions by 22. But yeah, it could be any sort of number of points as well. So big wins coming in for the Lions from us on our picks. Right, couple games to go. We've got the Jaguares versus the Reds. This one's in Buenos Aires. Now, the Jaguares, hey, this team's not bad, is it? I mean, they've got some key guys who are actually performing. I have to say, Boffelli is having an amazing season. You see, key men are really starting to stand up for these sides as well, which is really, really good. We've known all along that the talent is there in this team. They got the players that they can perform. But what changed in this team to get that victory last weekend? Just down to confidence. They got off to a really, really good start. And do you think that just carried them through, not getting any big hits that made them drop their heads? Is confidence to believe that they could do the job and hold on right to the end?
Yeah, I think they obviously their opening few games weren't great away from home. Against the Hurricanes was their first week back. They got pretty convincingly beat by a Hurricane side. They didn't really play 100%. But I think that game after that gave them a chance to dig in at home, and get just rooted in into their field. And they played really well against the Waratahs, and they should have beaten the Waratahs anyway at home, especially. The Tars haven't been that great this season, and they weren't that great against the Jags. But they played extremely, extremely well. They played to their strengths again. But like you said, they've had their backs have really stepped up as well. so that it was a good comprehensive win. I think it was 10 points in the end. So very impressive win. But to be competitive in that South African conference, they got to keep winning these home games because that's really their strength, being so far away from everyone else. And now that they've got this massive stretch of home games, they really need to take this opportunity to just rack up as many points as they can, especially teams like the Reds who are good teams but aren't as polished as your Lions or Crusaders or Highlanders of the world. So this game's a real opportunity for them.
Yeah, that big stretch of matches really has to come with 4 or 5 wins from, I think, 7 games they've got. So they've probably got a bit of catching up to do already, but I think that's a really, really good result to take out the Waratahs. Not just because I'm not a huge fan of the Waratahs, but it's good to see the Jaguares win as well, and to see guys standing up and performing. You saw tries from Sanchez, Tukalet. These are senior guys that need to lead this team from the front as well. So it's huge that those guys do demand that from these teams and these players as well. So what I think is going to be huge about this game is we all know the old cliche of Argentinian rugby have a really good forward pack, great the set piece, blah, 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 all that sort of rubbish. They're going against the team, the Reds. Now, the Reds, I think they've surprised me, but their pack has bullied everyone they've played. And they're going over to play the cliche good pack team. I think it's going to be a really, really good forward battle between these two sides. Is this going to cancel each other? Is this going to just become, do you think, a battle of the backlines with 2 packs? Or do you think one of these 2 teams is going to get the nudge? Do you think this young Reds pack could actually, topple the forward pack cliche giants of the Argentinian Jaguares?
Yeah, I think we've got a really ugly game in store. It's going to be that Argentinian style versus what Thorn ball, which a lot of people are calling it right now. Brad Thorn, you can see Brad Thorn being, the intimidating big forward that he was. You can see he's really left his mark on this team and has really done well with this young Reds pack. I've already mentioned Taniela Tupou, who was an absolute YouTube sensation in high school when he was in New Zealand. Went to the Reds, was under Richard Graham for 2 years, under Nick Stiles for a year. They didn't really do much. He didn't really do much. He was in the Wallaby squad, but that's sort of just a development thing. But this year, he's been impeccable. Not only has he been running the ball, which is what he's known for, he's been scrummaging really well. And you add that with JP Smith, the South African prop for them coming off the bench. He was at the Brumbies a couple of years ago, and he's been doing some solid scrummaging as well. So my favourite part of watching the Reds this year has been watching their front row because they, like you said, they've just been bullying everyone, and I think we're in store for a pretty big forwards battle. Both packs are really talented. Both front rows should compete really well. At the end, it depends how well the Reds travel. Going straight to Argentina rather than having sort of a layover in South Africa is quite a big stretch. Whether they'll be able to get over that, I don't know. I think they probably would have really be in Argentina, so they'll have a few days to get over their jet lag. And I think that one of there's probably 2 of the most ill-disciplined teams in the competition as well, going head-to-head. So I think a really ugly game is what's going to happen. Yeah,
I was about to make that point there at the end there. 2 teams that seem to love getting yellow cards. It's going to be a big factor in this match. 2 teams that could be quite affected by those as well, especially the Jaguares. We know that if things do go a bit pear-shaped for them, they do start to lose a couple of players, they can let their heads drop. On the other side of things, the Reds, a very, very young team, experience, that could do the same thing to them as well if they do. But, I mean, they've been in that situation. First game of the season, they lost Higginbotham, didn't they? And sure, they got thumped, but they still made a pretty good fist of that as well. So, I mean, 2 sides who, it's going to be down, it's going to be dirty, it's going to be physical, and it's probably going to be a good old-fashioned purists game of rugby, I'd imagine. Keeping things tight, keeping it in the forwards, big runs, solid hits. It should be pretty entertaining to see how these teams go and who actually wins this out through their backline, because we know the Reds talent in the backline as well, exciting players in there that can definitely open the game up as well. So should be an interesting game, I think. And well, who's your pick for this one? Of course, the Jaguares is at home as well.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's splitting these teams, one Well, it's probably one of the two. I think the Jaguares probably have better backs than the Reds. And that home ground advantage is huge for them, and they've been there for 3 weeks now. They get nice and accustomed back home. They'll be comfortable, but I think it'll be a close game. So I've got Jaguares by 3.
Well, yes, I do agree with you on that one. I think, like a man I spoke about at the start, Buffelli, just simply outstanding. He scored tries for fun this season, and he's taken a couple of years to get going, but he has really upped his game this year as well, which has been amazing. Yep. I think the backline battle as a secondary point could be pretty interesting if they get any ball, which is going to be the big part. I've gone Jaguares by 11. Possibly thinking about that now, I've probably gone a bit too heavy, but I'm sticking with it. No flipping here. No flipping. We're sticking with it. Jaguares by 11. So we're going to go with that one. Big win here for the home team. A home advantage is to be huge for them as well. Okay, last game of the weekend. Waratahs versus the Rebels. Interesting game in prospect here. Allianz Stadium is the venue. Waratahs, woeful. They return home. What went wrong for them on the road? Do they underestimate their opponents, do you think? And what I find interesting about this, which made me actually ask that question specifically, is first we had the Kings. Now, until last weekend, it's the winless Jaguares. It seems to be a bit of a common trend here for the Waratahs. Did they go over there expecting to win that game before they even stepped out on the park?
I don't know. In my opinion, I reckon the Jaguares are actually favourites on the weekend, despite not having a win. It's an Australian team in Argentina. It doesn't really normally bode well, that, and especially the Waratahs haven't been outstanding. They drew with the Sharks team, who was equally as bad as they were. And they actually really needed a win, and they failed to deliver on that, and they didn't even get a bonus point out of it. So they did get the 3 points out of their 12 from that draw, so which is a positive for them. It could have been good if they had either got a bonus point loss or actually a win in Argentina. That would have put them in really good stead. But because of that, the Rebels are really looking to run away with this conference. The Waratahs have got some good backs. But I think in the front row, I think they're lacking a bit, especially with their scrums. So that's an area that could probably improve in.
Yeah, it seems to be the Reds have got all the decent work out of the packs, isn't it? And they're going to continue to just dominate that area of the game too against all the Australian opposition, because no one seems to be able to hold a stick to them, which is going to hold that division really, really interesting. If they meet the Rebels again, that could be a really interesting one. But the Waratahs, of course, are up against the Rebels this weekend. Now, the Rebels, a lot you could talk about this Rebels team. The results you can't argue with. They've been amazing. They've got wins. They're scoring a record points against sides, taking on anyone that's put in front of them, really. But I question you this. Are you a believer? Are you impressed by what we've seen from the Rebels this season? Or are you waiting to see what they're going to do against a team like from New Zealand? A real stern test for what this Rebels side can do.
Yeah, the Melbourne Force have been going pretty well this year. I thought I would just throw that in there.
The Western Rebels?
No, the Melbourne Force. But, yeah, look, they have been really good. Obviously, they're top of the ladder right now. They've got max points from all the games they've played, and there's not really much more you could ask of them than to get 3 bonus point wins, 15 points, top of the table, can't really ask much. But, like you said, they have been playing the Australian Conference, which is the lesser of the 3 conferences. Look, to make the playoffs, they have to really only beat the Australian teams because it's how the conference system still works. If they stop Australia, they're going to make the playoffs. So I won't be making too many judgments about them till I see them play a New Zealand team or a good, better South African team. But, they've been good this season. They've been very good. Their backs have been great. Guys like Jack Maddox have been, he's been a try-scoring machine. And then what they do, they have an absolute headache with their wingers as well because they got Naivalu, Betty, and Maddox at the wingers. And they don't. Dave Vessel seems to be struggling a bit to seeing who's going to pick because each of those 3 wingers is a quality winger. So we'll see where they go with that. Don't know which way they'll. I think they might. I hear talks of them benching Jack Maddox this game and putting Betty and Naivalu in. So it's a different beast to defend against. And yeah, the Rebels have been a good team, and they should capture the Weary Dunlop Shield, which I think it's called. I think probably for their first time in their history, I'd say. But yeah, they've been good, the Rebels.
And you look who they've played. They've beat the Reds, who got pretty much every card dished out at them for the opening half. Didn't they beat the Sunwolves?
Yeah.
Not really much of an achievement. And then, I guess, the Brumbies were probably their big test, but the way the Brumbies have been this season, you'd probably count them to do every week of the season if they had to. So, no huge test, but like you say, that's three of the teams, that's in their conference that they got to beat, and they've bonus pointed all of them. So, they are really right out in front. Should they go on tour and lose? It's probably not going to matter. You're probably going to go, okay, these Rebels aren't as good as they thought they were, but they're still going to top the Australian Conference with ease. They can pick up bonus points on tour. They'll do it easy because it doesn't look like the rest of Australia is going to pick up any bonus points or any points at all on tour. So that's going to be the real tester for them. But that'll really tell us whether they're actually going to be contenders for the season overall, rather than just in Australia, which it seems like the way they've gone so far, they should do it pretty easily as well. The other interesting thing is, along with the Highlanders, they are, of course, the only undefeated side as well. So, what do you think going into round 5? We're talking about the Highlanders and the Rebels being the two undefeated teams in Super Rugby. I know fixtures make a big deal out of it, but it's still a pretty amazing stat to have in this round of the tournament as well. So, good on the Rebels. I think they've done what they had to do, and they're doing it pretty well as well. Right. Who's going to win this one? Waratahs, obviously at home, coming back from the road trip. Rebels, though, have been trekking around very, very nicely. What's your margin?
Yeah, I think this game will be a battle of the backs. Each team has a very good back line. And the Waratahs will be quite tired coming back from Argentina, which could play a big factor. It is at home. Good Sunday afternoon rugby, which they seem to love there in Sydney. So I think the Rebels will take this one by 5. I think they're just a better team right now. Guys like Will Genia, Dane Haley-Petty, Jack Maddox, really been putting up their hands this year and have really been getting through a lot of work. So, Rebels are just a very deep team, as you get when you combine two teams together. Look, the Waratahs haven't looked that great this season. So, maybe they'll prove me wrong. But, yeah, I've got Rebels.
Yep, I agree pretty much with what you're saying there for the word. I'm going for the Rebels as well. I'm going for them by 9. They seem to be breaking every record they could. Points scored, margins against, everything is going their way. They're the only Australian team to have a plus points differential as well. So, I mean, everything looks rosy for the Rebels. If they can do it here against the Waratahs, you got to say that pretty much slots them straight into the top spot in Australia. Not much else is really going to stop them.
They should have it under control.
Yeah, they are definitely doing it easy at the moment. Bonus points flying out their nose. They're going to be hard to stop. They're going to be hard to top at that table as well. So you can almost book in one team to the playoffs already before you even got halfway through the tournament so far. So that is it. That is it. We've done all the matches, which is amazing. We've gone on, as always, as I always say, I'm not going to do way too long, but that's all right. Good chat, Brett. Thanks for joining us as always. Anything you want to add on to this weekend's matches, or anything you want to say to the viewers out there?
Not much. I'm just hoping the Sharks can get one over the Brumbies and improve on the dreadful season we've had so far. So, that's pretty much it.
Nice and easy. Bulls fans, don't hate them too much. But as always, I'll leave all those links in the description below. You can leave all your thoughts on our opinions for this round in the comments below as well. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next week with round 6. But until then, thanks for tuning and watching. And as always, take care.